What's going on, everybody? This is Metachomp. Hey, Alex Muncatchy.
Hey, Mike Muncatchy. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. How are you doing?
I am doing fabulous.
You guys, welcome back to another episode of Metachomp. This is the place where we're going to be talking about movies, trends in movies, maybe sprinkle in some video game stuff here and there as well. Mm-hmm. What do we got on the docket today, Al?
Nothing.
Oh, thanks so much for listening, everybody. Be sure to follow us on Friendster. Catch us on Classmates.
Snapchat.
Snap it.
Classmates. I forgot about Classmates.
Catch us on Classmates.
Oh, man. Those pop-ups were wonderful.
And also, hit us up on that Farmers Only.
Oh.
Because as we all know,
city folk just don't get it.
They just don't get it. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about some pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
To start off, villains. Love them, hate them. Some might say that we are both our own villains in our deepest, darkest.
We need a mirror.
We need a mirror.
We do.
A dark or a black mirror.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Ed Zachary.
You know, his ears must be a ringing.
But yeah, villains. I think this whole idea of having an antagonist, I know that whole thing has been challenged over the years, and in film, you know, there was the black-hatted cowboys, right? That was like how they could tell the black hats, you know, that was sort of, you know, their way of being evil and you know, maniacal in their pursuit of the protagonist. But
I never realized that, because Westworld, you know, you have the black-hatted
well, that's just
cowboy.
classic Western trope, and I think that's, I don't know. I feel like I would love to think that we've progressed in developing cinematic language to the point where we don't need to have such an obvious thing. But no, you go to any movie, a lot of movies nowadays, and yes, the villain is still often immaculately, you know, dressed. Yeah. They're usually dark. They're usually, you know, they usually have their dark clothes. They're usually like, you know, in shadow, you know, or they're, you know, it's like they're still. I feel like villains are still too on the nose. Yeah. Too many enemies, you know, too many people who are just, they might have an agenda. They're just so, you know, they're still so cookie cutter. Well, they're for the most part.
They're pretty single tracked, a lot of them too. And in the end, what their goal is maybe they're trying to destroy the world or take it over. But the end game almost never makes sense for the rest of us. Like, what's your real goal? Like, also, after you take over the world, what happens then?
That's probably another thing too, as well, is that when you have
Alex, I'm asking you, what happens then?
You sit in a secluded area on a private ranch in the middle of Montana, and you just watch the sunset and rise. You drink some coffee. You have an old dog, a trusty old.
Yeah,
retriever.
You can't trust young dogs.
Only old dogs.
So basically, the end game is to live life as a Folgers commercial.
Exactly.
Well, I can get behind that.
You know, it sells itself. Okay, it does.
It's the American dream.
It is. But I think, you know, but then you have like people like they're your protagonists, your heroes. Then they have your you know, your friends of the heroes, and oftentimes we're conditioned to believe that if a friend or a supposed friend of a hero is overly nice and smiles a lot, they might be hiding something. They might be a little bit fishy. Why are they so nice? Why are they doing everything for me? Mm-hmm. And then that in itself, yet again, is like, you can't be too evil. You can't be too nice. It's like, can we just have, I would like to have just more morally ambiguous characters that are complex.
Yes, yeah. Like Shaun of the Dead. I think that's a good example of a protagonist who's actually the guy who'd normally not even be a main character, because he is absolutely down on his luck. He's got a girlfriend who's just broken up with him. He's in a job that he hates, and he's just kind of palling it around and moseying through life almost as a zombie. So he's like an unlikely protagonist, but we can all get behind him because, first of all, he's Simon Pegg, and his friend is Nick Frost. They're two of the most lovely, charismatic people, of course, on the planet. But second of all, because they have a simple driving factor of surviving, even if their own idiocy gets in the way. Mm-hmm. I love too that when they're when they're in the apartment building and like the third floor up, and they're completely safe, and Simon Pegg says to Nick Frost, "We need to be somewhere safe, somewhere on the ground."
It's perfect. But I also think that because Simon Pegg really wasn't a big actor. I mean, he did Space before, but it was like he really was not a household name, and not anywhere to the degree he is now.
Right.
But I mean, I feel like the way they introduced him really as this big character, as a big actor in Shaun of the Dead, was a very phenomenal, just pronounced, it was nuanced method of doing it, because it wasn't, you're an actor who's in a comedy, it's like the temptation is to show him as a rubbery, just wildly, everything is physical, everything is exaggerated, like everything has to be kind of crazy, and I'm a comedian, haha, I'm going to crack jokes, and I'm going to be like the Hugh Grant of characters who just like, it just has a certain suave and all that stuff too.
Suave,
yeah. But I think my point being though is that I feel like because of Edgar Wright, the director, a lot of the humor was in the delivery of deadpan jokes. Was in the shotgun style cinematography, the quick shots in succession of like the doors closing, the coffee pots and everything.
That's his homework move.
It also helps to propel the story, but also helps to help the actors, because they have a certain way of measuring out the introduction and utilizing those kinds of decisions, stylistic decisions that can really help elevate Simon Pegg. That's when he's plastered. That's his alter ego. But
they do go to the Winchester.
That's true. That is true.
But you're right. You're right though. And here's where I think Edgar Wright did such a great job. He set up Simon Pegg and Nick Frost's characters as being these losers, for lack of a better term. But the way the story kind of evolves, it's setting up these characters and having this struggle then to turn them into these likable, heroic people. Because in the end, there are times when I've watched Shaun of the Dead like many, many times, but towards the end of it gets so emotional that at times it's hard for me to even watch, especially when Simon Pegg's, spoilers for a movie from 2003, when his mother passes away. It's a really emotional moment. So and when the characters start dropping like flies, it actually had more resonance with me, and it was a true character arc where so many movies have what seems to be these really tested characters who've been there have been focus groups and studies of like, this is going to be a likable guy who's nerdy, but he's not too nerdy.
Right, like Chuck.
Yeah, like Chuck. Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking about Chuck. But we have these characters, like this duo against these forces of evil. We don't really know anything else that's going on in the world except that which is provided to us by news reports, which is also kind of a play on traditional zombie movies. Mm-hmm. But you have that thing that you can kind of grab onto and say, like, this is a romantic comedy with zombies.
Right. Well, I mean, I agree, and I think in particular with just obviously they show like the mundane nature of life. Like they have those phenomenal, hilarious tracking shots through like the grocery store. Everyone's in the same line, checking out the same thing in the same speed. Everyone's kind of lumbering along. No one's talking to each other. Mm-hmm. Like they're creating obviously that obvious association, the fact that if the world did end and there were zombies, how much different really would it be?
Yeah, and how long would it take people to actually realize that?
But I think what's great about it is that they were able to make those parallels and make that connection and have all these very obvious metaphors and whatnot. But I think what's great is that the end propelled it, though, because it wasn't just, we're going to go full circle. We're going to show that it really wasn't that much different than what happened in the beginning before the invasion took place or before the outbreak took place. It was also, let's let these characters evolve. Let's round these characters out, because yes, they might not have changed as much as they were in the beginning. They've lost people that they know, their friends and everything. But it also shows that they've grown. They've become more complex characters, and you feel far more empathetic towards them and their situation. It reminds me of movies like. there are movies that have evolved around losers, and they fall apart sometimes, or they might try to attack it from a different angle. Like Harold and Kumar was a great example of a movie that did a great job with these two characters.
Yeah, very similar in a way.
Very similar. And then there's Dude, Where's My Car? And there's Biodome. There's a lot of movies. Like it was like a 90s trope.
Don't you dare shit on my Biodome.
Like, it was...
They put those cigarette filters in the giant filter to clean the air and the...
it was like a 90s, early 2000s where like, it was really, really popular to have a bunch of people who are down on the luck, like Ashton Kutcher, Seann William Scott.
Yep.
The Baldwin, I don't know the guy Baldwin, and Pauly Shore, I don't know which one is it, Michael Baldwin, I don't remember. And I think that
Jake Baldwin,
they introduced them like they were both like on the couch and they were tearing each other's toenails off with their teeth.
Yes.
The weirdest thing.
There was the thing about the 90s.
It was like...
And they have these gorgeous girlfriends. And all these 90s buddy comedies about like college-age kids, they're always like... They don't work. They're just hanging out. And they got these beautiful girlfriends who they don't really care about. They're not really like charismatic.
Well, basketball. Basketball is another great example of these two people that were friends from childhood.
Tread lightly,
but
friend.
I mean, and I know I'm purposely combining all very good buddy movies and bad movies in the same category because we can tell like there's a wide breadth of differences between them, but they're united by the fact that there are two people who, in general, like even though we don't really like Pauly Shore, I don't think anybody really can say that they love the guy. If you do, phenomenal, more power to you. Yeah. But I feel like I've heard he's a good guy. I've heard he's pretty decent in real life. So I've heard nothing. I have nothing against him. But as far as his movies, I don't think anybody's going to be just jumping out of their seat to say that they love Biodome. I thought Biodome was up there as a guilty pleasure for me.
Me too. Encino Man. I mean, in the army now.
In the army now, right? There's some stuff out there, but I feel like for me, they're trying to, in Biodome in particular, they're trying to develop them as empathetic characters. You're supposed to kind of ease into the fact that they're kind of like you, they're kind of like me, and. But honestly, from the beginning to the end, there's not a dramatic progression. There's not a change in their character. They're still kind of exactly who they were. And I think that whole argument with Shaun of the Dead is the fact that they were the same at the start, but they've been tested, they've evolved, and you've grown so much more closer to them as a result. And that's a movie that has like a lot of accents, it's very different. The whole world, the city is just it's different, and so you would think that it'd be a little bit more hard to swallow.
Right.
But it was just, there's a general sensibility that these characters, the actors themselves also happen to be just insanely charismatic as well.
You were talking about Biodome.
Yeah.
There's something about Biodome. It's almost like Mother. It's like it's a metaphor about how humans will treat the planet. Mm-hmm. It's a microcosm. It's all in this bottle. In Biodome, it's in the whatever that simulation of a like what is it, like a simulation of an off-planet base.
I think they participated in the program because they were needing money, I believe.
It was like Biosphere 2, I think, is the name of the location where they were.
Yeah.
But then they just started like messing around and it reminds me. I bet honestly, it makes me hate Mother because I feel like Mother really ripped off Biodome because that's also all about how humans will trash the earth. I would have hated to be Jake Baldwin or Pauly Shore watching Mother and just thinking, oh my god, they fucking did it.
They did
fucking Aronofsky stole the whole premise.
And I think yet again, it wasn't just that these when we watch someone like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost sort of navigate, like they're still sort of conceited. They're still like like when they're trying to throw things at the zombies, they're going through records.
She's so drunk.
Well, they're just trying to go through records, you know, through vinyl, and they're trying to figure out which ones are good, which ones are bad. They're sorting through them, and it's like that's like I don't know. There's like a general, like a universal rule of them being just very charismatic and put into situations where like, okay, like I get it though. Like there's part of me that like, yeah, if I was emotionally attached to something, you know, I think that's, I don't know. They preyed on a very specific aspect of human nature in that regard too.
It elevated the zombie like the zombie uprising film genre,
and it was scary. The film
was scary. Really scary.
Yeah.
But I loved it though when they see the girl and they said, "Oh my God, she is so drunk."
Yeah.
And then like she's on top of Simon Pegg and they're kind of wrestling on the ground. Nick Frost is above them with a disposable camera, photos.
Yeah.
And then you see like when she like Simon Pegg throws her off, she falls into like the an umbrella or something. It pierces her heart.
Yeah.
And you could just hear the click, 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 click of the disposable camera as Nick Frost is looking on in disbelief. Like, they just don't make movies like that anymore.
No.
They're far in between, especially
but also
for comedies.
Think about this, though, because that comedy, it's like that click, click, click. I mean, a lot of people probably wouldn't even have noticed it, but it's like, it doesn't matter. Edgar Wright in particular would write something like that, would film something like that, and they would just throw that in there, like Airplane will shoot at like 30 jokes a minute at you, and it'll be hysterical and amazing for the first 2 or 3 jokes, and you might not even see or hear or realize the other ones. But that's the greatest part about a movie like that, is that movies can be rewatched and you can be enjoyed and you can pick up all these other details. And there's something like, you know, Marvel did a good job too, which is the fact that, like, you know, having Easter eggs, having things that are put in there. And I feel like there's something magical about a movie that's like, you know, the small details are there. They're not going to just have a giant pointing neon, you know, glowing sign, you know, oh, this is a detail that I put in that added another $5 to the budget or something. It was like, hey, we're going to throw in these details. We're going to make it as realistic as possible. It'll be hysterical. If you don't pick it up, not a big deal. But if you happen to rewatch it and you pick up on the detail, it makes you love that movie even more.
I agree. Well thought out worlds.
Yeah.
But, you know, talking about Marvel in particular, I mean, how many villains did we have to go through? Just kind of jumping back to villains. Yeah. How many villains did we have to go through before we actually had somebody who's compelling? You know, like Thanos is the big, you know, he's purple favorite.
He's the big, I mean, you know, and then Josh Brolin, I mean, Josh Brolin's he's just a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, he's very good.
And so, I mean, I don't know. That's a great question. Marvel
and Thanos thinks he's doing the right thing. I mean, we can't really. I don't think that it's right for us to really spoil that film right now.
No, of course. But I think, like, there's moral ambiguity with the villains. They're not so bad. They're not bad or good or any you know, without some semblance of relatability. You need to have some semblance of relatability. Understand, like, for example, with prisoners. We understand, like, if your child is abducted, you know, and you found that the guy potentially responsible for that, which happened to be Paul Dano, you can feel for Hugh Jackman.
I always feel for Paul Dano. He just seems like a tortured soul.
He's a phenomenal actor. He's great.
No, he's phenomenal.
But Hugh Jackman is just like, you understand. Like, in Hugh Jackman, in many ways, if you were Paul Dano, Hugh Jackman would probably look like the villain in his eyes. He's like, oh wow, you're chaining me to a bathroom. I think a bathroom chair or something like that, where he's thrown in and he's just bound and
imprisoned.
He's imprisoned. Exactly. And, you know, there's a point where of desperation, people always talk about that, like Death Wish with Bronson. You know, the whole idea that, you know, his family was, you know, killed. I think they were like raped and killed, and he wants to go after these villains, you know, after the people, you know, kind of like a Batman, like a superhero, you know, vigilante, justice kind of thing going. But it also means that, like, I think, like, having some semblance of relatability with people who are characteristic, you know, or uncharacteristically evil or veering towards evil, it helps. It really does help, because otherwise everyone turns into I was going to say gold member. What's gold? Is it Goldfinger?
Goldfinger, yeah. I expect you to die.
Yeah, everyone turns into someone who's just like, it becomes a parody to the point where like, okay, what is world domination? Like,
well, it's like the movie The Talented Mr. Ripley when was it Matt Damon's character who says like, no matter what a person does, like they never think that they're a bad person.
Yeah,
like nobody actually thinks that they're evil.
And he said, I think he said it like that too as well.
He's just like that
to be creepy.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that they think they're bad.
They're bad people. Bad person.
Let me show you how I got these scars.
It's I think that it's important. I think Marvel with Thanos did a great job with just making sure that's established, and that's all I'm going to say about that too.
And it's also about time. I find that so many, especially
Mike, do we have it?
What's that?
Do we have time?
We don't. We don't know.
Am I going to die?
Mm-hmm. Just wait a while.
just wait.
Just wait a while. But and that's I think part of a carryover of what happens in film that doesn't typically happen as fast in a good TV show. Like in film, you got these arcs that kind of have to happen, and they have to happen fast because you only have maybe, and if you're Peter Jackson, 12 hours to really figure out what a character's motivations are and who the villain is and what their motivations are. And unfortunately, it can become very binary of what the motivations are and who these it's good versus evil. But that's why I think the birth of the anti-hero, especially after, in the 2000s, has been
like
incredibly,
Sin City and all that stuff too.
Yeah, Sin City. And also, Breaking Bad comes to mind.
Yes.
You've got Walter White, who in every other film or TV show would have been the villain. He is like the mastermind, but we're cheering for him because I think there's a little bit of darkness in all of us, and then there's a little bit of good in all villains, which is why we have Salamanca, and we've got all these really great villains who were like, what, I'm kind of on the other side with some of these characters.
Well, like I was thinking about it, like you mentioned Peter Jackson and 12 hours like he had. I was thinking, you know what? But for some reason, it's easier to digest if the ultimate motive for a villain is to like world domination and rule the universe. It's easier to digest that as a concept when it's like when it's set in a fantastical world than if it's set in real world.
Right.
I don't know why that is. Why is that Saruman like literally?
He wants to do the same
thing, and it's like, but we dig it. We're like, Middle Earth. It's we don't really know how big this place is. Like, go for it, right? Like, go for it, but like, you know what I mean? Like, but I feel like it's easy. But it's easier to like understand. Like, okay, I get it. He's an evil wizard. He's gotta do his thing.
Yeah. Also, and because the evil is personified as a giant fucking eye. Yeah. But you can appreciate the optics of it, like the visual of like these hordes of this villainous army, and they're very simple. Yeah. They're not quite human. You got these orcs, and then same thing with Game of Thrones. You have the human interplay of the good and the bad people have good elements. The good people have bad elements. Nobody is purely and
doesn't matter who you are on that spectrum. You're probably going to get killed off.
You're probably going to, very few people are going to survive. But then you got the White Walkers.
They basically have been doing what Thanos has been doing for, 7 seasons, 8 seasons now?
That's right, yeah. But you have, it's very true, nobody's safe. And unless your head's not cut off, nobody's coming back either.
That's true. No Sleepy Hollow going on over here.
Oh my God, Sleepy Hollow. Just flashes of Walken's face just popped in my eyes with those shark teeth.
Okay.
Oh God, here we go.
I love Sleepy Hollow.
Here you go.
This was a
tell
movie
me
that
all the ways. Pull out your daisy, pluck the petals, and tell me all the ways you love.
Let me explain. So imagine it was 2003,
2000 and forever.
It was early. I'll never forget. I walked into a Blockbuster, and I remember those. Walk in and literally...
kids ask your parents. Blockbusters are places where you can go to actually rent movies.
Yes. Yes, and they're great. They're great times. It's a great time.
And by rent, it means that you pick it up, you take it home, you watch it, and you return it within 2 days, or you're levied a hefty fine.
It's like $1,000. It's $1,000. No, it's not big.
$1,000.
They have
pocket change.
They have options for paying it off with financing. But it's I'll never forget walking into a Blockbuster and seeing this massive like a graphic, like a poster going all along the entire perimeter of this Blockbuster.
Jeez.
And it was this massive, like it was like a the walls from like the tops of the shelves to the ceiling is only like 3-4 feet, and it would go up there and then it would go all the way down, and it was just this massive panoramic shot of the woods, and then on one side was Johnny Depp and the other side was like no, it was the girl,
I don't know,
Christina
Ricci.
I couldn't remember her last name.
Christina Ricci.
And I think in retrospect, thinking about like the fact that Tim Burton was like tasked with bringing the whole Headless Horseman thing to life.
Yeah, he was like, movie taking place in the woods with twisted trees.
I feel like that's so cool, though. I don't know. It's right up his alley. I think it's like that's like it was like I don't even think he had to go in and ask for the project. He was like, Tim, just take it, just go.
Yeah. So Tim just removed his hair, put it on Christopher Walken, gave Johnny Depp his glasses.
Yeah, basically.
Is Helena Bonham Carter in that too?
Yes, yeah. She plays like a person, like I don't know, like a witch or something in the forest.
Oh,
I think so.
Interesting.
I believe so. Yeah. That
was. You think of the Vivitch.
The Vivitch, yeah. But it's, I don't know. For me, where were we going with that? I think
you were talking about how much you love that movie.
I know, but how do we get to Sleepy Hollow?
I think because I was talking about Christopher Walken.
Oh my god! I swear, I don't know. This is crazy.
Mm-hmm. 6 Degrees of Walken, but I'm excited to walk with you through the woods and tell me other things about the movie that you like.
Well, I guess the villains. Well, villains.
Oh,
yeah.
Beheaded, Game of Thrones.
That's right. And then speaking of which, yet again, this Headless Horseman. That story he is a tortured soul. He is someone like Paul Dano, like you said, he's a tortured soul. Yeah. Headless Horseman.
Look at his eyes.
But Headless Horseman.
Like, if you're listening at home, all four of you.
Yeah, he has Ryan Gosling at home. Ryan Gosling eyes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe.
He has sad eyes.
Well, Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yes. So really sad eyes.
Sad eyes.
Very sad.
It's like the look that I had on my face when Parks and Recreation died.
It's like it's like that. It's like with the look on Paul Giamatti's face when Parks and Recreation died.
Or the look on Paul Giamatti's face when he watched the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. Very true.
I'm the Rhino.
God, it's funny. I was,
Wait, let's
fact that Thomas Hayden Church plays Sandman and he plays Rhino. It was the weird sideways reunion that no one asked for.
No, God.
It's just it's like the same thing with with Samuel L. Jackson as Glass and Bruce Willis. Mm-hmm. Unbreakable was the Die Hard reunion that we didn't know we got.
Mm-hmm. It's not the Die Hard reunion we wanted. It's the Die Hard reunion we deserved.
Exactly. Compelling villains that are, you have to feel something for them. This should be common sense. But I guess maybe, I don't know. It's like we're back to like the old movie code almost. We're like, we can't make them too relatable. We can't make them too understandable because we don't want to be sympathizing with serial killers and whatnot.
The best villains are the ones where at the end we're like, I'm really sad that person's dead.
Right.
Like there was something to what that character was all about.
Yeah.
I miss characters like that. I feel like very few films.
Well, like Darth Vader. Darth Vader. I mean, Darth Vader is he speaks for himself. He speaks for himself all the time. Themselves. Yeah. No,
well, in Darth Vader too, like you see him first in The Phantom Menace. No, in A New Hope, and then you see that character develop, and then by the end of it, you just see him for the old man that he is, and he's trying to reconnect. And I mean, what a redemptive story! Just that he. It's not really that Luke and Leia and everybody saved the day. It's Darth Vader saved the day. Mm-hmm. Like Darth Vader threw the Emperor.
Yeah.
So that's helmets off to Vader.
Helmets off.
Helmets off.
But yeah, I mean, the movies have done it, but it seems like it's like, I guess people now, it's almost like it's like, I will not make a compelling character that you can sympathize and empathize with unless I'm given a trilogy to explore that option. It has to, it can never really be done in one movie. It's like, I'll throw $300 million at me and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Like
Thanos. He was first introduced in the original Avengers, and that was like 8 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable. And villains, I don't know. Like, I think that.
Well, let's crawl. Let's kind of walk it back a bit.
Let's crawl it back.
Let's walking it back a little bit. Who would you say? Who are your favorite movie villains of all time?
I mean, it's hard not to get
swifty with it.
Get swifty. No, but it's hard not to be, to have an overly cliche list. Well, I would say Daniel Plainview from There Will Be Blood is up there.
Played by Daniel Day.
Daniel Day. Yep. And I mean, for 1,000 reasons,
we're that close to him. We're on a first and second name basis.
Yeah.
With Daniel.
Well, I said Daniel Plainview.
Oh,
which is the character's name. But
I said Daniel Day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's phenomenal.
Let's both agree that we're both
phenomenal character and interesting character that is manipulative, egotistical, just someone who's all about one focus, and has a son that he has raised, and just I don't want to, obviously I don't, even though the movie came out 2007 or 8, it's not exactly like a new movie, but it's like one of those movies that it still has enough importance to it that I would recommend anybody who hasn't seen it to check it out, because it is a movie that revolves around a character who is very cold, someone who you really can't necessarily get too comfortable with, but you can feel like, hey, he's really motivated though, right? Like, it's like
if Lincoln got involved in the oil business,
you can empathize with him because you're like, it's almost like the joke that people make that, like, yeah, serial killers, like, got to appreciate the motivation kind of thing. I think that George Carlin talked about that too as well.
Oh yeah, I was like, oh no, what we don't need are motivated people. Motivated people are the people who end up doing horrible shit.
So like, I think maybe the fact that he was so driven in his pursuit of more money and to be, to do all this stuff and dominance in that regard, because he basically wanted world domination. He was Thanos in There Will Be Blood. I mean, but it was only because he was an oil baron and he wanted to spread his own stuff through lies and deceit and all that stuff. But I think he's without a doubt one of the more compelling villains that I can think of.
It's great film. That bowling alley scene,
so great. But it's like, that's a good example. Like, I probably could come up with a bunch. Like, I could mention Celine
Dion.
I could mention Jack Nicholson in The Shining. It was one of my favorite villains. Is someone who's just so, like, he's a writer, he's struggling, he's going through some stuff, and like I said, I know that that's an adaptation from
Stephen King's book.
Is it a book or is it a novella? I don't even know what it is.
It's a novel.
Is it a novel?
Yeah.
Because I remember buying it for part of an anthology.
I still haven't read it. I've read 30 of his books, but not The Shining.
But yeah, that's
the best for last.
But it's honestly, like, yet again, it's a character that you go with. He has his kid. They're going to a remote, secluded area, and he sort of develops this crazy psychosis and kind of goes nuts and all this stuff. And it's like there's paranormal stuff. There's real trauma, psychological craziness. And I think that's like, yet again, I'm not saying that you have to have incredibly deep characters, villains or protagonists. But on some level, I should at least understand what they're doing, why they're doing. There should be some part of me that can connect with them. It's not too much to ask for.
And he also went. He's a troubled person who. There's something about that place that infects him, Amityville style, and turns him into this monster. It's crazy to think too that he typed all those pages. Yeah.
Oh, and last one that I'll mention too, just to kind of round out a very basic, simple list, but I would say Nightcrawler. Just another great example of a character, that is very, very driven,
Also, that's one hell of a snub too for Jake Jelly.
Yeah, very motivated, very driven. Wants to make a big name for himself.
You know, the writer said that character though, he doesn't have an arc. He's basically a virus, and he just keeps on getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I think it's because of the fact that he's abnormal in that regard. His character isn't as round as a traditional Hollywood character.
Yeah,
he's not fully explored or understood, which is kind of like that's kind of Joker-esque, I would say, in that you don't fully understand him, and that's the whole point.
It's very Joker-esque.
Yeah. And that's another reason why, like, the Joker and or Nightcrawler kind of get my own bid for that part. You know, there's, at least from relatively recent memory, those are the ones that I can say that are the most compelling, just because, you know, there is part of me that, like, okay, I get it, I know what they're doing, and, you know, I applaud writers who actually go out their way to make something that's compelling and different.
Yeah, like a challenging character to write, and then a challenging character to play. Like Jake Gyllenhaal, I just always think of like his big eyes and
it's a complete departure. Complete departure.
Because he's able to be such like a soft and kind of cuddly like character in most of his films, and yet in this one, I thought he disappeared and he became this.
Daniel Day disappeared.
Yeah,
and became. I mean, he played the butcher in Days in New York. But I mean, for the most part, like, yeah. Do you really would see that? I mean, you see Daniel Day in real life. He looks like the most pleasant person ever. But like he went super method. Yeah, super method with There Will Be Blood.
It's true. It's interesting too that a few of your points were like people who were very much method.
Yeah,
you know, Daniel Day-Lewis. And Jack Nicholson was like famously very method.
Now, the thing is, though, Stephen King, as you know, that universal understanding is the fact that Stephen King's primary issue with Jack Nicholson in The Shining was the fact that he wanted to have someone who looked normal and then became crazier. But Stephen King felt that Jack Nicholson looked crazy from the first frame.
Right. He always looks crazy.
He's like, oh, so it already happened already. So he already went and lost his mind.
Yeah,
that's basically that was his primary issue with Jack Nicholson, which I think is hilarious to me.
That's a great point. Yeah. He does already look. He's like sitting in the office
because when you think about it, he wants a rounded character and he wants like an actual character who looks like they're going through some stuff. But yeah, like. There was enough of like the Kubrick stare that they do with the head that's lowered, like the bowl charge thing, and he was doing that.
That was the thing. I didn't.
I think they call it the Kubrick stare.
So I immediately think of like A Clockwork Orange when he's like kind of looking.
Kubrick has it's like a signature thing,
like looking through his eyebrows, basically.
Yeah. But there were moments early on in the movie that he was doing that.
It's a good idea though for our next profile pics.
The Kubrick stare.
Some Kubrick stares.
It would just, it would set the right impression, But yeah, it's,
It really brings the sex, like, puts the sex in sex offender.
Yeah. It's honestly, I would say that would be, that's kind of a decent list as far as movies or characters that, good or bad, are just, they're just compelling. They're different. And I applaud and appreciate people who go out of their way to make something that is relatable but not foreign. Like there's just this element of mystery. I think the word that I'm looking for is mystery, having an element of mystery and not knowing everything about. I don't want to know what you eat for breakfast. Like I don't want to know everything about what you do and what you're going for. Leave something to the imagination.
Yeah.
And then make it, but also have some elements that make me feel empathetic towards your plight as well.
Yeah, well, I like that you mentioned The Shining because I thought that like Jack Nicholson's character and the hotel merged into one, and what a thrilling performance, and just also seeing everybody else acting off of his chaos, especially just the way, when he goes into the bar and he's getting a drink and he's sort of like, he's himself, but you can just tell that there's something's there.
Yeah,
it's like this. It's that little spark, and it actually reminds me a little bit of another great, great villain, Javier Bardem's character in No Country for Old Men.
Yeah,
I feel like with him there is such a it's like there's a theft of sympathy, or the sympathetic part of that person's mind, and you can just see it as this psychosis that like personifies itself as this person. Like, when I think of absolute evil, I can't help but think of No Country for Old Men.
Well, I told you, I mean, I think I mentioned this before in an earlier podcast, but I told you that the way they describe him in the book is that he's the man without a sense of humor. That's how they describe Javier Bardem's character.
That's great. I mean,
which is perfect.
It's very appropriate. He doesn't have a sense of humor,
which is like, it's such a great way of basically saying that, like, he is just, he's a sociopath. Mm-hmm. He is entirely disconnected from reality.
Yeah,
has no understanding of emotion or human empathy. Like you said, everything's kind of binary in his eyes, and
he's just there to destroy.
He's exactly.
And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. He's just this bizarre type of person that, in a way, you just know exists in the world.
You know so little about him too, which I think is phenomenal.
Yeah. There's a lot of screen time. You see him. You
don't know a lot about like his childhood. You don't really know a lot about really his upbringing or anything, because the Coen brothers found that that's not things should be left to the imagination. Things should be. That's the problem, I think, with nowadays with so many franchises, reboots, and prequels. You're rounding out, like, I'll mention his name once, but it's with Ridley Scott. It's like
he's our favorite elderly filmmaker.
You are okay. So initially, the Alien was shot with one light. Aliens shot with multiple lights, and then Alien 3 freaking like broad daylight, in full, like a, in like a well-lit prison, one of the most well-lit, most efficient looking prisons I've seen. And as he's literally lighting the alien to show more and more of it, because he's super proud of his work, as he should be. I feel like there's, what's his name?
Fincher for Alien 3.
Well, yeah, Fincher for, yeah, exactly. And then Ridley also then said that the alien was a bug. That's how he described the alien in later movies. He just became more and more he just didn't. It just came through as someone who's like, okay, is this going to be like a Jim Carrey situation with and Jeff Daniels situation when they go back to Dumb and Dumber 2, and they're like, I think I get the character. They're wild and zany and all that. And they both seemingly forgot the fact that, yes, they're wild and zany and crazy, but they're also like lovable. They're lovable idiots that are not. They're not prone to physical outbursts at the point where they will, potentially kill someone.
Yeah,
like the whole thing with putting like the hot stuff, the peppers and stuff on the burger, and for the hitman, and then for the first Dumb and Dumber, mm-hmm. like they were laughing at the fact that he was so, the food was so hot. They, I think they killed him, right?
They did, because they didn't. That's not what killed him. They fed him
pills,
rat poison.
The rat poison,
and
but think about that.
Pills are good.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they're actually the villains.
But the thing is, that's unintentional. Mm-hmm. In Dumb and Dumber 2, they were doing that stuff intentionally. They were very mean spirited, and that went against their entire character. Which I don't know how I got to this point, but I think it was sort of the fact that
somehow Christopher Walken.
But I think it's because of I guess their understanding, because it was such a long time from the first Dumb and Dumber to Dumb and Dumber 2. Jim Carrey was sort of like, I watched it once, like a night before the first shot. First they started shooting the second, the new one, and they forgot what made the characters. I think Ridley Scott, he did that as well with those movies. And my point ultimately being is that he then used prequels and things like that into Xenomorph, into the mythos of the Xenomorph, explaining everything about them, where they come from, what they do, really going through every facet of that character. Anything that was left to the imagination, anything that was left to us to ponder, was extrapolated, explored, and displayed right out in front of us. And it leaves nothing to the imagination, which is horrendous in my opinion.
But Ridley Scott also, for the original Alien, it's 1979, simple, relatively simple film with this incredible character and production design.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott's later work, though, alludes to what would happen in Prometheus. Like in Blade Runner, he's trying to find out the meaning of life. He's got these these characters, these replicants, who are exploring the idea of life and souls.
But remember, this is not Ridley Scott. I mean, this is Blade Runner is not his work.
It's still his work because he was attached to it. You know, like he still.
And Philip K. Dick wrote, like, it, you know, in the same way that Lord of the Rings kind of set up the blueprint. And obviously, I give Peter Jackson props for bringing that very dense work into the film, into cinematic vision. Ridley Scott should be praised for that. But it's like, you know, a lot of these things that are thematically similar. I mean, he's connecting something that Geiger created with something that that Philip K. Dick created. And I honestly I don't know. I'm indifferent to the idea of giving him credit that way.
But it's also like thinking about, you know, you think about thematic choices, and I think Ridley Scott makes thematic choices. He also has an incredible amount of power and influence as a director.
Yeah.
He will influence the way the writer. Like the writer does not make a movie. The writer writes a script. The movie is made by the director looking through the script, making changes and edits. And very often the writer is not even there on set when they're actually producing the movie. But you look at Blade Runner, and then you look at that side by side with Prometheus.
Wait, did he write? What did he write?
Who?
Ridley.
I actually don't know.
I don't think
who wrote the original Alien.
I don't think it was Ridley. It was I can't think of his name. He came back for Alien Covenant.
We'll have to look it up. But like for Prometheus, he didn't write Prometheus either.
No, that was Lost. That was Lindelof.
Yeah. But you also, I mean, as somebody who's an auteur, has a lot of power. There are not a whole lot of writer directors out there. You know, Prometheus is still about the pursuit for the origins of life. He just kind of sculpted that to be about something that he didn't really want to make a movie about Alien. He wanted to make his own film because he's an auteur, and it had been 40 years, you know, since, I mean, like, God bless him for having a career that spans so many decades. It's incredible.
My argument isn't necessarily with the direction of Alien. It's just the simple fact that they have revealed every single thing about the alien.
Well, also, you just don't really fancy yourself a Ridley Scott fan.
No, I'm a big Ridley Scott fan. I love Alien, Aliens.
But today is Ridley Scott?
No.
Exactly.
No, like, I love Alien, Aliens, Gladiator. Those are great, all great movies.
The Martian.
Martian was good. Yeah, great. You know, All the Money in the World was, you know, okay. Like,
yeah.
There's a few movies out there that he's kind of, you know, that has done. I thought American Gangster with Denzel and Ridley. What's his name? Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
That was good. You know, I think that there are movies where he's very comfortable. He's really well done. You know, he really does a great job at, you know, exploring things. But his sci-fi, you know, trappings that he really pursues, that's kind of where I think he's the most popular, most well known, because he has the freedom, as everyone tells anybody, you know, the idea that science fiction, you have literally limitless things that you can explore. You have entire ideas and definitions. Mm-hmm. There's nothing confined to earthly, you know, the things. I think that's. Yeah. But my point with the xenomorph is the fact that I don't. You know, we were talking about the fact that people like someone like Javier Bardem is somewhat mysterious. He's sort of disconnected. There's something off or different. The xenomorph as a creature that really serves a very simple single purpose is very similar in that regard, where we actually are left to kind of ponder exactly what these things are. There's a level of mystery associated with it, and I think that's kind of important to me. Like, I'd rather not know about where the xenomorph originated. It's metachlorians. It's finding out the reason behind the force. When the director or writer or whomever is adapting it, that's my argument. Figure out what made it magical in the first place. Right. I was just saying that was my biggest, that was my feeling towards his approach to really extrapolating the xenomorph, because he found that the idea of going through this alien species and to try to make it into something with like androids and stuff, which he's been obviously very fascinated with as well. Yeah. He, in doing so, I think he's starting to really explore and showcase it's like the Predator trailer, you know, they've gotten better. But I feel like, you know, you're showing off this brand new Predator off of these expensive prosthetics and design, and you're showing everything about it in the first 10 seconds of a trailer. But that's part of the beauty of a movie like that, is that you want to show off the thing, you know, later on. You want to build that anticipation, that suspense. And I feel like as you continue to go through and extrapolate exactly what these things are, it just removes some of the joy, the magic of wondering exactly.
Yeah.
You know.
And also that's why even if you're at all able to, avoiding promotional materials, avoiding trailers, avoiding all the marketing is the best.
Like, think about this.
Bet, because the director, the writer, nobody chooses what's going to be in the trailer. It's all the studio. It's the marketing. It's the other half of the budget, which is made by, those decisions are entirely made by a wholly separate team.
Like, think about this. Jason Voorhees. Jason Voorhees is a, staple of slasher movies because he slowly pursues someone with a hockey mask on, and he just kills. There's no real reason. There's no meaning behind it. And then later on, they decided to actually really, really extrapolate. Like, okay, where is this guy come from? What is he? What's his situation? So they show him as a kid. They show him in a pond or a pool or a lake and drowning. Having these crazy, he was supposedly he was disfigured, his face, and he was mocked, and he was part of a victim of a cruel prank, and died because of it. And so in doing so, we understand the backstory, but now they're making him empathetic. We feel empathetic towards him. We're starting to feel like, okay, maybe he's a killing machine because he was neglected and he had a crazy abusive, family and everything else like that too as well, which is, like I said, this is an unnecessary explanation.
For a type of character.
For a type of a character that doesn't have the depth and nuance.
It's interesting too. Initially, we were talking about the necessity to make villains that are at some point like that they're relatable in some way.
It depends.
I also feel like it really depends, and it also just depends on like what is the nature of that character. Are they human? Are they an alien? Are they a monster? Or are they something that we can't really like Jason Voorhees, human? Okay, like that's a bit of a stretch. There's always been sort of a kind of a supernatural component.
Then you compare this to Freddy Krueger, which is he was at least from Freddy vs. Jason, they showed him as someone who was. I guess I don't know if he was convicted. I don't know. He had a thing for children, and then he ran to like a farmhouse, and they threw like flames and fire, and not flew flames like freaking like Dragon Ball or something. But or Street Fighter. But they set the place on fire, and he burned alive. R.I.P. Basically, and so he came back and sort of as a thing for people sleeping and everything else. But it's like honestly, that's kind of like. I don't know. Like, I feel like it has to fit the character. Like,
well, it has to be interesting.
It has to be interesting.
It takes away the interest.
It is interesting, but I feel like if you're going to have someone be a victim of something, like I think him, Jason Voorhees drowning or being picked on and stuff. I get that, But I feel like there's something like that's a good arc for someone who's an anti-hero, for someone like, and I guess, and there's some people who watch slashers. A lot of people watch slashers, and they're rooting,
Freudian, though.
And
it's very Freudian.
And they're rooting for Jason. They're rooting for Jason to kill because they watch those slasher movies for watching the kills.
Yeah, they want to see all the deaths.
Yeah.
The scream.
So I guess maybe it serves a purpose. Maybe they're like, maybe they're making him more empathetic, and that way a lot of the audiences that can then watch it, they're like, yeah, okay, cool. Then these people really do need to die, even though they're not really to blame for anything, but they feel like the revenge is suited because of his childhood.
There's something to be said about flashbacks, like that they're kind of a no-no in modern cinema. Like, don't resort to a flashback. You should have everything that you need to tell your story without having to resort to like images of this character as a young boy. And if you do use them, they have to be incredibly like just well done and serve a purpose. But I also think that sometimes writers just get lazy. They explain something that they already have the answers to instead of doing more interesting things. Reboots
and kind of these origin stories, like the origin stories became a huge thing. Like Christopher Nolan was, very. You call him Chris.
Let's call him Chris.
So Chris basically talks about we just dropped the Nolan altogether. Mm-hmm. He had the idea of an origin story, the gritty reboot. Batman Begins was responsible for the gritty reboot.
Yeah, and he uses flashbacks in a nice way.
He does.
And in a way, it helps to make us draw a connection between Bruce Wayne and his dad, especially to
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee, just to show why this guy has gone insane and dresses up like a fucking bat and fights crime. Because otherwise it would just be like, hey, here's Bruce Wayne, a crazy person, you know? Because you have to kind of in a world as grounded as Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight.
Well, that's what's funny is that's actually one of the things that he says. Remember, there's the people who are like similar vigilantes in Dark Knight at the very beginning that are dressing up like Batman, and so he stops one of the vans and saves one of the guys. Obviously there's the I'm not wearing hockey pants line that he uses, but he's arresting the Scarecrow, and Scarecrow turns and because I guess one of the guys who's sympathizes with Batman's fight and wants to work with him is like, oh, you need help, we really need help, and Batman's like, I don't need help, and then the Scarecrow's, I guess, like, no, that's not my diagnosis. Mm-hmm. Which is funny because it's like it's alluded to by the fact that yes, like this dude, like you have to be a certain level of Jack Nicholson crazy.
You have to be Jack Nicholson.
Yeah,
you gotta be totally crazy, just off the wall, Jack Nicholson. Christopher Walken with the shark teeth.
You know what's funny? Stephen King would probably just think that you put Jack Nicholson in a Batman costume. I mean, he was crazy before he even put the costume on.
Oh God, yeah.
He was just through and through.
I would have seen a Jack Nicholson Batman.
Yeah,
as Batman, not as the Joker.
That would be fascinating.
And now we got Joaquin as the Joker.
Yeah. I mean, he's a phenomenal he's a phenomenal villain in Gladiator.
He's such a heartthrob, isn't he?
He's a phenomenal villain in Gladiator, and
he's not going to dress.
Not even. He has a way though. He has a very measured approach. I think it'd be fascinating. I'm excited to see what happens.
I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm just
Todd Phillips, right?
Hangover. I didn't watch Hangover Part 3.
I mean, if the guy who can do Saw can then do Aquaman, can then do Fast and the Furious, if the guy who did, it's just like you just don't know anymore.
Yeah, you never know.
It makes perfect sense, right? I mean, it's like if you make something, but you're super passionate about something else. I mean, also the age group. I feel like there's certain people who are in a specific age group who are like, oh, they grew up with Jurassic Park, or they grew up with this, and this. So this would be a dream project. Like with Blomkamp being his dreams crushed time and time again for Alien. And
whatever. It's like making movies. He's got huge like special effects budgets. He's like, wah. Neil Blomkamp's like, but I thought I'd put out the concept art and everybody would be like, go make it, Neely. It's like, fuck you, dude. Just keep making your shit. Keep making your Chappies and Elysiums.
He did mention that though. In other news, he did mention that
Chappie was frustrating for me to watch.
I thought it was okay.
I thought it was very beautiful, but also, fuck that movie.
I like Chappie more than Elysium.
I do too. A lot more. Elysium is more heavy-handed than Mother.
Elysium, Blomkamp called an unequivocal failure. He said that was one of his.
He made it.
I know.
He put $100 million into that movie. He's like, why would he say an unequivocal? Like, what a way to like. That's a way to like shooting yourself in both feet. It's a failure. I spent a year on this.
He basically said that it's not at all what he wanted to make.
Whatever. He's like one of the very few directors working today who's able to make movies consistently that are big budget and not based off of existing intellectual property.
Yeah.
Like none of his movies.
Well, remember Halo? That was the big rumor for a long time. Was Halo?
Yeah, he was working on it back when Microsoft had Microsoft Studios.
Pretty incredible stuff. Yeah, but I mean, if a guy is even half decent at sci-fi, like like I said, the guy who did not Day After Tomorrow,
Roland Emmerich,
Edge of Tomorrow,
Christopher McQuarrie.
Is it Edge of Tomorrow?
Doug Liman.
Is it Edge of Tomorrow?
Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah.
Wait, did Doug Liman or Christopher McQuarrie?
Christopher McQuarrie wrote it. Doug Liman directed it.
Lyman, I was gonna say Scooby. What is his name? No. Bourne.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Really? Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Isn't that great? And that's a sequel that's greenlit. That's happening.
Another Jason Bourne movie?
No, Edge of Tomorrow. Too.
I was like, oh god, like a little pang of indigestion.
Live, die, repeat again.
I know, the Bourne movies. Come on, guys.
More like boring movies.
They were a phenomenon back in the day.
I love those movies.
The first. Well, you love the Moby song at the end, but that's besides the point. And I
don't shit on Moby, dude.
Oh, it's on Moby.
So great.
What is it, Moby?
It is Moby.
It was Moby. It's like
an alarm going on.
It's like the end of.
Everyone's like, "Well, I guess it's time to leave."
It's like the Linkin Park Linkin Park Day song
for Transformers.
For Transformers, yeah. But yeah, Moby was like the new hotness for a while.
Well, apparently, according to the Bourne Identity series, it's still the new hotness. It's the forever hotness.
But I mean, I'll never forget though, like when he was going outside that building, that snow,
it's like the theme song for the Bourne Identity is a fucking Moby song. How weird is that? It's a hardcore, fast-paced, some of the best fight choreography I've ever seen.
Okay,
and they close every single movie with Moby.
That was Greengrass.
Here we are going to the west
That was
side.
Greengrass, right? Paul Greengrass?
Maybe. I actually don't know.
I think Doug Lyman. Doug Lyman did one of them, but that's
neither here nor there.
He but yeah, they talk about. I think now did Matt Damon? Did he do his own stunts?
Yeah, I think. I don't know why I said yeah. I actually don't know.
I think he did.
Yeah,
that was the big deal because he's outside of like a 3-story building. I'm sorry. I mean, like, you know what I mean. Like, I don't even know how tall. They have a stunt double and he's on top of like a rooftop or something of like a house or something.
Matt Damon is so courageous. He stood on top of a building.
No,
I think he jump from the one building to the other.
I
feel like any insurance company like would just look at it and be like, no, I don't think so.
I don't know what Tom Cruise has in his contract to like what he does.
Well, he's powered by Xenu. You know, he's got
Xanadu.
Xanadu, yeah. He's powered by our boy. Who's that guy? He's 83 years old. Soon to be 83 degrees. Sean Connery, Xanadu.
Yes.
Isn't he in Xanadu?
I don't remember.
Why did you make me think about Xanadu?
I have no idea.
Xanadu, Jesus.
Sean Connery hates Hollywood. You know that? I think I told you about that. And just unrelated news. He hates Hollywood.
Should someone tell him?
It cracks me up though because I guess he's never been to like the Oscars. I guess supposedly he was never there, or he went there once. But it's because he felt like the people were trying their best to like screw him over with the contract. Like because at a time where he was being offered like for Lord of the Rings and stuff, he accepted League of Extraordinary Gentlemen on his. I guess that was like the big thing. Was
his final credit?
He's not dead.
He's not working.
Yeah, he's not working.
No, I mean, this League of Extraordinary Gentlemen came out over 10 years ago.
That it did. Yeah.
God.
Yeah, that was. I guess he was offered it with Morpheus and all this stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost a Russell Crowe situation where Russell Crowe was also offered Morpheus. Sean Connery was offered.
You know
Gandalf.
what? I feel like, again, spur of the thought, just thought kind of thing. Kevin Hart needs to make some dramas. He needs to get into. I was thinking, like, imagine, like, if we found out later on that, like, Kevin Hart, if Kevin Hart got like was supposedly the idea, like the person for Gladiator or something. Imagine if we found that out. Like that's to me, it would be an appropriate thing.
Wait, Kevin Hart was the person for Gladiator?
What if we found that out though? Like that was like
that he was offered that role.
Yeah.
Can you just imagine 4'7" of little Hercules just jumping around? I'll kill you.
Yeah.
There are some things that Kevin Hart can do. And I think a really convincing action film, you gotta get really creative with those camera angles.
You do. Mm-hmm. Well, you have to do like a Bane thing, right?
Because he walks up to storefronts and he's got to have other taller people open doors for him.
Well,
he's 2'11". He's like yeah. Yeah, he's about as tall as like two Xbox Ones stacked on top of each other.
But yeah, it's going through. Like I said, there was a moment too where like there were actors like Will Ferrell in Everything Must Go, Like I love that. I love yet again. I love a lot of unpredictability. Trying to avoid being typecast.
Also, Stranger Than Fiction. I think he was really good in that.
That was a great.
I loved him in that.
And then
Willem Dafoe in Nevermind.
Ryan Gosling.
Yep.
And the other guys, or the nice guys.
The nice guys, yeah. Also, Mark Wahlberg in The Other Guys.
Yeah.
Really great. I mean, he's wonderful. I thought they both shined so
That's
brightly.
true. He really wasn't really known for comedy, was he?
No, he still really isn't. I still think that
De Niro and Meet the Parents?
Meet the Parents, yeah. Meet the Fockers didn't happen.
Nah.
But there was something cool about... I actually think Transformers was better when it was Shia. I actually don't like Mark Wahlberg in that film series. I would... Because I actually think Shia LaBeouf is a really stellar actor.
Megan Fox is a phenomenal actor as well.
Megan Fox, yes, she has range.
She just has such a depth to her that it's just like a pocket full of just these bag of tricks.
She's true, very, very true.
She's has true, all kinds. It's very true. Not just very true. It's just she's very true.
She is April O'Neil.
But I actually never saw. I never did see the new TMNT.
Oh, well, you should watch it.
Is it good?
I've seen the first one. It was really good.
That was.
it was a lot of fun. I said really good, but it's actually just a lot of fun.
John, what's the director of that one?
I don't know.
He did the Battle LA, Battle Los Angeles.
Oh God.
He also did. There's a guilty pleasure. Don't say. Do not pull out like the Daniel Day-Lewis level of method acting to say, oh God. No, but I liked Battle. Okay.
Yep, there were good things in it.
Everything I said in this podcast will be discredited because I said that I like Battle LA.
No, it's
but
great.
I also like Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The New Beginning, which also then contradicts a lot of my points made earlier, which is the fact that there was an origin story to Leatherface, and it wasn't really needed, but I thought it was enjoyable. So yeah, there you go.
Back to Battle LA. Nice job there. But back to Battle LA.
Yeah.
I thought the villain or the alien vehicle design was really creative. I like the on the ground. You
know what it reminds me of? Very Killzone-esque.
Very Killzone. Yeah. Especially with those like the lift vehicles.
Yeah.
Like, the way that would fly around.
That trailer got me hyped though. That was great. That was such a great trailer.
This is not the end.
Oh well, there's that song, but then there's the Johan Johansson.
Bum, bum.
The Sun's Gone Dim or whatever that song is.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It was great.
So freaking good.
I'm making fun and I'm making light, but you're right. Bell LA's trailer is one of the best sci-fi trailers I've ever seen. I love that trailer.
It was a huge. In fact, they actually made it seem like it was like a big, like a phenomenon. Like it's like, oh, this is. I don't know. Is it based on something? Nothing.
It is based on a
fiction on the mind of the writer
from the early God, you bastard, from the early 1960s. No, there's a story about the Battle of Los Angeles.
The Battle of the Babadook.
No, there used to be spotlights. You're just trying to subvert the fact that you brought up that you love Battle LA.
I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked
that. It's something that you adore. And
it's cheesy B movie fun.
You think about Battle LA.
Well, I don't have posters of Cloverfield Paradox at work.
Anyway, so there's a news story that came out back in like 1912, and you can see all these spotlights. They're all aiming up into the sky at an object that's hovering above the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah,
they had artillery trained at it, and I believe they were firing at this object, and they were never able to find exactly what this object was or where it went or where it originated. So
the real story of 1912?
A real story, maybe not 1912, but
let's go for it.
In the teens, though. It was in the teens.
Okay.
But I think that's why it's loosely based on that.
Based off of a news snippet from
snippet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like how they did, remember like the whole thing with the Mars rover or the Moon rover? Is it Mars or Moon that was kicked over or knocked over? They used that for Dark Side of the Moon. It was Dark Side of the Moon for Transformers. Remember that? That was like viral marketing.
Oh yeah, it was smartly done though.
It was smart. It was. But yeah, I don't know. It's campy. It's a campy B movie, but with a crazy Hollywood budget and Michelle Rodriguez
in the military, like on the ground, found.
No. You just made up a new genre of film. It's not just military horror. They call it militaire.
Militaire.
Yeah. But I gotta say that's Michelle Rodriguez.
I just wanted to let that settle in. Just militaire.
Mm-hmm.
My new band name.
Michelle Rodriguez plays Michelle Rodriguez in that movie.
She can play no one else.
She it literally is. That is your character.
Yeah, I'm sure that she stepped off the set of Ballet and hopped into a race car, and she lives her life a quarter mile at a time.
Yeah. And then, she was then driving over to her role as another pilot or not pilot, as
she was a pilot
in Avatar.
In Avatar, yeah. R.I.P.
Aaron Eckhart, R.I.P. for that guy's career. He was Two-Face and then No Face.
No Face, yeah. Two-Face,
no face in space.
Two-Face, no place.
I don't know. I think he is interesting. I don't think they knew how to market him. I feel like he went for a little while for the Thank You for Smoking, and then
he's so good in that. I love that movie.
He did great, but it's like I don't know. There's part of him that's like very like they wanted to go for the clean cut, handsome dude, the charming, like the Hugh Grant thing, right? A little bit as far as just like he has a kind of a thing to him, but I don't think he wanted to do that. No. And then unfortunately Nikolai, whatever the guy is from Game of Thrones, kind of came along and I think like stole Aaron Eckhart's like thunder. You notice that?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. I feel like
he's swapping up all of his roles.
Yeah, like all that. And that guy, by the way, also has a fascination with prison movies. He's made like 6 prison movies.
Ooh, Nikolai
something.
Whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah,
the King, the Hand.
Yeah, the Lannister. So he's been like in 6 prison movies in the past like 3 years. I don't know. He's doing his own thing.
It'll be really ironic when one day something comes out.
Yeah.
Because something always comes out, and eventually...
Yeah.
Oh, man. Lannister did not pay his debts.
No, he did not pay his debts.
Mm-hmm. Now he's living it raw.
And I think with the... Just to go back to the central point that I was trying to make... just to make sure that I don't contradict myself either, but I feel like that's... When it comes down to characters and rounded characters that are empathetic and emotional and having, some semblance of relatability to them, it's not a necessity. Yeah. It can help elevate. Right, yeah. It can help a film.
It's good to clarify.
It can elevate a film or any media, whether it be a game or a film or something, to be something greater than it already is. It can help. It can only improve certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to be safe and understandable within the context of the universe that's being created around it.
Yeah.
If you're giving me a backstory to the guy who built, well, I was gonna say the guy who built R2-D2, but that was Luke Skywalker, wasn't it?
Anakin.
Oh, it was Anakin.
Wait, Anakin built C-3PO.
How do they meet?
C-3PO and R2?
Yeah.
Wait, were they born side by side? Am I just creating this?
Do they do robots? Do they get born?
I think it's like a Cialis commercial where they're both sitting in bathtubs and they have their hands, they're holding hands side by side.
I'll say I'll never forget me watching for the longest time. For some reason, as a kid, I was watching Mystery Science Theater.
What a weird thing, though. 2 bathtubs sitting side by side.
It sounds romantic.
Who has 2 bathtubs sitting side by side?
They fill it up and they watch the sun set or rise. If they saw the sun has to rise.
It's Cialis, Al. That sun is rising.
That sun is rising. Well, the sun set, the mosquitoes come out, and then you have to like empty the tub, or do you not empty the tub? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Also, who decides who gets into whose tub?
I used to watch Mystery Science Theater, and there was that one robot. I always thought that was C-3PO for some reason in my brain.
Yeah, the gold one.
The gold one
with the head shield, the Babylon 5 style like headdress thing.
Yeah. I don't know why.
And then there's like the one that's just like the gumball machine and robot. I love that though.
It is. It's so great.
We should actually we'll have to start doing commentaries.
Yeah.
MST3K style.
MS-13 3K. I like that.
MS-13,000K.
13,000. But I just want to make sure to clarify my stance on that too. Because
appreciate that, because you are on the record here.
Well, it just sounds like I'm the biggest hypocrite, because I feel like there are certain movies that have very little characterization. They don't develop an emotional core to the villain. And I'm okay with it sometimes. Yeah. But I feel like if it's a drama and they can go there and it to make sense within the story and that contextually makes sense, I think it can be pretty powerful.
I couldn't agree more.
Oh.
Guys, I hate to say it, but we have just reached the end of our reel. We're actually recording on a tape deck right now in the heart.
A tech deck or a tape deck?
We're recording straight onto a miniature skateboard, also known as a tech deck. Kids, ask your parents. Mm-hmm. And we'd love to have you guys follow us. We are all over the internet. You can follow us on Snapchat. Yeah. Hit us up on Farmers Only.
There's actually kids. I was going to call it kids graffiti, which is basically like sidewalk chalk. Mm-hmm. You can find our information and your local neighborhood.
That's right. We're all over the ground as
kids graffiti.
Kids graffiti. I mean, it's true, though. It is kids graffiti. I mean, in a way, they're still vandalizing.
And well, think about it. If people draw on a sidewalk in California, ain't no rain going to wash that away. That's going to stay there forever, the end of time.
That sidewalk chalk is just a gateway drug to the real thing. Yeah. They're starting to, they start with a multicolored sidewalk chalk. They move on to the Krylon touch.
Exactly. Happens every time.
Touches my heart. But appreciate you guys listening to this episode. We're going to be bringing you guys more content, talking about video games as well, and going more in depth about individual films and directors and writers, talking about what's going on in the industry, certain trends. Appreciate you guys listening, and please, Al, where can people find us online?
Snapchat was probably one of the bigger ones.
Yep.
Friendster. The Wii code, we can exchange Wii codes, for Nintendo. Church, yeah. Mm-hmm. Every time.
I'm hearing people say church a lot. Just so keep preaching to me, Al.
Keep preach.
Keep preach. You can follow us on 500 Pixels. Be sure to snag us on classmates.com.
Yeah, Classmates is a big one.
And the best place to find us is good old GOOGLE.com. But thank you so much. I'm Mike Muncatchy.
And I'm Alex Muncatchy.
This has been Metachomp, and we're out.